Thomas Porteous, and you're watching NewsX World. Let's look at the top headlines this hour. Ukraine celebrated Independence Day with pride and grief as the war entered a third year, while Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney visited Kyiv as a special guest, vowing unwavering support. But in Donetsk, civilians faced another day of relentless Russian strikes, underscoring the contrast between celebrations in the capital and suffering on the Eastern Front. Russia says a Ukrainian drone strike damaged a transformer at the Kursk nuclear power plant, starting a fire that was quickly put out, with no casualties or radiation leaks reported. The incident came as Ukraine celebrates Independence Day, while the United Nations nuclear watchdog urged both sides to show restraint around atomic facilities. Israeli planes and tanks struck eastern and northern Gaza City overnight, leveling homes in Zeitoun, Shejaia and Jabalia as residents fled under heavy shelling. The assault comes as a global hunger monitor confirms famine in Gaza City, even as Israeli leaders vow to press ahead with a full takeover. Tens of thousands joined pro-Palestinian rallies in cities across Australia as tensions with Israel deepen after Canberra recognised a Palestinian state. Organisers claim some 350,000 people marched nationwide, though police put numbers far lower, with large turnouts in Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane. Former Defence Minister Benny Gantz has called on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to form a unity government with opposition members to secure the release of hostages in Gaza. The move would sideline far-right coalition partners who oppose any deal with Hamas, even as Israel threatens to destroy Gaza City if hostages are not freed. 3 former Sri Lankan presidents have condemned the jailing of 76-year-old Ranil Wickremesinghe as a calculated assault on democracy, calling the $55,000 state funds case frivolous. Wickremesinghe was rushed to intensive care in Colombo with serious health issues while in custody, fueling public outrage. Vietnam will evacuate over 586,000 people and has cancelled dozens of flights, while China's resort city, Sanya, shut down businesses and public transport as Typhoon Kajki intensifies, according to Reuters. The storm is expected to make landfall either in southern China's Hainan province or central Vietnam, posing a major threat to both countries. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un supervised the test firing of 2 new air defense missiles, demonstrating Pyongyang's military advancements. The launch came after North Korea accused South Korea of growing closer to the United States and Japan, heightening regional tensions. We start this hour in Europe, where Ukraine has marked its Independence Day with both celebrations and sorrow as the war in Russia entered its third year. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney joined the commemorations in Kyiv, reaffirming Canada's support. Across the Donetsk region, however, civilians endured another day of relentless bombardment. In the Donetsk region, residents sought shelter in church basements and boarded up shattered homes after days of bombardment. Many spoke of exhaustion, fear and longing for peace, with some saying they would accept almost any compromise if it meant an end to bloodshed. Others stressed that despite suffering, Independence Day still holds deep meaning, symbolizing the struggle to remain free. Let's have a look at what some residents had to say.
Когда в жизни мы работали. Я работала на мебельной фабрике. У меня на доске почета. Я мастер золотые руки. Я всему миру помогала. Всему миру помогала. Мне говорили, что я мать Тереза, всем помогала. 6 человек от смерти спасла. А вот такая мне пришлась.
Да у нас даже нету утра, у нас 6 часов бомбежки. У нас всю ночь шахеды. И сегодня, я не знаю, даже, наверное, 6:30, вот, весь дом разбомбили. Гляньте, что творится. А во дворе еще, посмотрите, там пожары какие были. У нас нету перерывов. У нас все время бьют и бьют. И все. Мы живем в сказке.
We now have some live visuals coming in from both the Prime Minister of Canada and the President of Ukraine, Zelensky, and Mark Carney addressing the Ukrainian people on Independence Day in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. Ukraine and Canada, of course, both having deep historical ties, with Canada being the first Western country to recognize Ukraine's independence on the 2nd of December in 1991. The strong relationship not only stems from diplomacy, but also a deep-rooted Ukrainian-Canadian community of over 1.3 million people. Ottawa, of course, a strong ally of Kyiv throughout this 3-year war. We will, of course, bring you all updates as they come in, and also the updates in regards to the fighting as well. We are joined by Martin Saar-Arias, who is a foreign affairs expert. He joins us live from Germany to discuss this further. Martin, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Good to have you. I want to talk to you about the current state of the war. Independence Day, it must be very surreal for the Ukrainians as Russian aggression encroaches on their territory while these celebrations are going on. Your thoughts about the importance, the significance of both European and, of course, Canadian support during this time, both militarily and also symbolic during this conflict?
Absolutely. I think this opportunity to celebrate the Ukrainian independence is not only a symbolic and historical space where people can celebrate their nationalism towards Ukraine, but also an opportunity of enhancing the relations, the bilateral relationship between Ukraine and the West, especially with Canada, and also to invite the European Union to keep supporting Ukraine and to maybe remembering why Ukraine is an independent country. What values, what Western values are the ones who are being taken in consideration at the time of fighting for your country, for your independence, for the survival of Western values and what it means. So I think this opportunity can be a very huge one for improving the bilateral relationships.
Yes, of course, and obviously fighting does continue with diplomatic talks going on in the background, which have, in some ways, have held most of the attention, with big grand ceremonies included in Alaska and also Washington, with Donald Trump at the helm of both of them. Your thoughts on the current state of that? Do you think they are seemingly as stalled as they seem to be?
So basically, all of these symbolic events taking place all around the world. Also, at this time, you're touching the Donald Trump position in this issue. I think also Ukraine needs to ask for more representation and more support from the U.S. Ukraine is definitely needs to ask Donald Trump if he's neutral or he is really staying in the same side with Ukraine. The world needs to know what type of strategy is Donald Trump going to use, because until now, being absolutely neutral has not been the best strategy, at least for public opinion in the United States and in Europe too. So yeah, definitely, I think Ukraine needs to ask Donald Trump what really his positions and to call out what Russia is doing right now.
Martin Saar Arias, thank you very much for your insight on that topic. We will, of course, bring you more updates on that as the day rolls on in Ukraine and, of course, on the front lines in the east. We now move over to West Asia, where thick smoke once again filled the skies over Gaza City following fresh Israeli airstrikes. The strikes came just 2 days after the Integrated Food Security Phase classification declared that Gaza and its surrounding areas are now officially suffering from famine.
انزح وين؟ طب احنا دقنا العذاب، قالوا لنا نزوح انطوا مناطق آمنة. اطلع على المواصي وطلعنا على المواصي. دقنا الذل، دقنا الأمرين في المواصي. يعني شكلوا علينا عبء مش عارف ايش بدي اقول لك، لا شغل ولا عمل ولا حاجه، يعني وصلنا احنا ايش؟ وصلنا التسول عشان ايش؟ نقدر نعيش، والموت لسه ارحم. ارحم ما نجي نطلع من هان. يعني والله اقسم بالله اللي بصير هذا كله حرام.
The Global Hunger Monitor warned that the crisis is worsening with over 514,000 Palestinians already experiencing famine, a figure expected to rise by over 100,000 by the end of September. Israel, however, has dismissed the report as false and biased, blaming that the IPC relied on incomplete data from Hamas and ignored a recent surge in aid deliveries. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the report an outright lie, stressing that Israel has facilitated over 2 million tons of humanitarian aid since the conflict began. Okay, we have some further updates from the crisis in the Gaza Strip. Israel has pounded Gaza City, forcing more families out of the built-up area, the most populated area in the enclave. Israel says that it is going to continue pressing ahead with its Gaza City takeover, which is what we are currently seeing visuals of now. Operation Gideon's Chariots 2 is what Israel is calling it. Israeli planes and tanks have pounded the eastern and northern outskirts of Gaza City overnight from Saturday into Sunday, destroying buildings and homes. Residents have told the Reuters news agency as Israeli leaders vowed to press on with planned offensives on the city despite outrage from around the world. Witnesses reported the sounds of explosions non-stop overnights in the areas of Zeitoun and Shejaia, while tanks shelled houses in the roads of the nearby areas. We are now joined by Ali Mohammed Abushbak. He is an independent Palestinian researcher, and he joins us live from Cairo. Ali, thank you very much for joining us, as always. Operation Gideon's Chariots 2, as Israel are calling it, seems to be in full swing. Condemnation from allies around the world, along with this damning UN report, have not seemed to do anything towards Israel's actions. And as we see from the visuals in front of us, these attacks continue to being carried out mainly on the outskirts currently, but Israel say that it is going to push through its attacks as planned. Your reaction, Ali, to the start of this campaign?
Thank you, Thomas, for having me. It was a heavy night for the Palestinian and one of the toughest nights for the Palestinian from Gaza. Israel's bombardment, its focus on the northern part of Gaza City as well as the central of Gaza City. Also in the South Gaza City, Gaza Strip in Khan Yunis. Israel's bombardment focus in Hayya al-Zarqa in northern Gaza and al-Zarqa neighborhood and Sheikh Ridwan neighborhood in western Gaza City, as well as also in Jabalia and Nazla neighborhood in north part of Gaza, Hayya al-Sabra and al-Zeitoun neighborhood in East Gaza City. It was Israel's adopting the heavy bombardment and heavy bomb like a several of bombardment dropped in the same area. Around 64 civilians have been killed since morning up to now, and 100 of civilians injured, while Israel announced to launch the second phase of Guardian's chariot operation in Gaza to seize Gaza City. Several of fear among the civilians, especially there is around 500,000 children. They are under risk of displacement from Gaza City to South Gaza. News media reported that around 90% of Gaza Strip under the Israeli control. So that's make it the situation more incredible, and it's make it more toughest. Among of that, Thomas, it's worth mentioning that more than 8 civilians have been killed because of the malnutrition in Gaza City, and 100 of civilians, around of them, around of 19 civilians who's seeking for food. They are killed in the sites of distributing the food for the humanitarian aid in Gaza. So among of this atmosphere, also Thomas, Benjamin Netanyahu, he concerned that the Israeli delegation, he's going to send it to Cairo to discuss the last proposal that put it by the mediator Egypt and Qatar, while he considered they are not going to negotiate except in one condition: Hamas should be accept all the Israelis points in this delegation, in this deal. So also, Thomas, it's worth mentioning that the artillery shelling the Al-Zarqa neighborhood up to now, it's continuous bombardment and shelling this area. It's in north part Gaza City. Thomas, there is a worldwide anger with the Israelis operation in Gaza yesterday, and we have witnessed for the first time a massive of protest in northern Korea. They are demanding to Israel to stop the war in Gaza. Yesterday, also 100,000 Israeli protested in Tel Aviv, asking Benjamin Netanyahu to stop the war and accept to release the hostages. Israelis news media, they concerned that and emphasize that Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't giving any attention for the life of the hostages and captive in Gaza. Donald Trump, he reported last time about invaded Gaza. It will protect the Israeli hostages on the ground, but this is completely as a propaganda. It's one phase of deporting the Gaza civilians from the Gaza Strip, even not Gaza City, because it's a lot of the expert.
I just want to take a different look at one of today's updates. Former Defense Minister Benny Gantz has called Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to abandon his coalition and form a temporary unity government with opposition members and get rid of those members, including Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, to secure the release of these hostages. Now, for those who don't know, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich belong to those who want to keep this war going. Much like you mentioned, Ali, we've seen hundreds of thousands of people march on the streets of Tel Aviv inside Israel. They want an end to this war and a release to the hostages. However, these members of the cabinet do not want this. Can I get your thoughts on that? On Benjamin Netanyahu, who not yet responding to that request, and also Israel Katz's statements just a couple of days ago that he said he was going to raise Gaza to the ground if Israeli demands were not met and all hostages weren't released at the same time.
Thomas, it's very clear. Benjamin Netanyahu, he's not only concerned about his government coalition that with his allies, that Smotrich and Ben-Gvir also. last time on media, Benjamin Netanyahu, he said he came for a religion's message that for greater Israel, that to occupy several of land in Arab area and Middle East and to establish the greater Israel. So that's very clear that Benjamin Netanyahu, he doesn't care about only the coalition, the government coalition, especially the coming year, it's the Israeli election for the parliament. So in this atmosphere, Benjamin Netanyahu, he's trying to do the best for his history as well. Due to that, Benjamin Netanyahu, he's trying to occupy and seize several of land, not only in Gaza City, in Gaza Strip, also in West Bank, and establishing a settlement that against the international international law, according to the resolution 2334. That prohibited the Israelis, and they consider the Israeli settlement in Palestinian territory as illegal, that released in 2016 during the administration of Barack Obama. So among of this atmosphere, Benjamin Netanyahu, he doesn't care about the international community, his local opinion. He's just only consider himself, he came for a huge duty for greater Israel. Yeah, Thomas.
Ali, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your insight. We will, of course, here on NewsX World continue to bring you all the updates on that developing crisis coming out of the Middle East. We now move over to South America for our next story, where in response to a wave of violent attacks, Colombia's defense minister, Pedro Sanchez, led an extraordinary meeting following drone strikes that downed a police helicopter, killing 13 officers. The incident, which took place during a cocoa crop eradication mission in Amalfi, Antigua, marks one of the most deadly assaults on security forces in recent years. Sanchez emphasized that Colombia has not entered into any ceasefire with armed groups for over 6 months, and there has been no cessation of offensive operations since May. That's what he stated, and reinforcing the government's continued military push against criminal factions. Let's listen in to what Colombia's Defense Minister, Pedro Sanchez, had to say on the issue.
No hay ningún cese al fuego con algún grupo criminal desde hace ya de más de 6 meses. No hay ningún cese de operaciones ofensivas desde mayo, que era toda la fuerza pública, toda la capacidad del Estado colombiano para neutralizar las amenazas. Y eso es más fácil si lo hacemos unidos todos, si lo hacemos unidos de la comunidad, a quienes les pido que nos suministren información para poder actuar y neutralizar anticipadamente las amenazas.
Okay, we are covering Colombia, where there has been a deadly assault on 13 police officers. The South American country has been rife, obviously, with violent crime for years now, with the government security forces struggling to get a hold on it. 13 police officers killed in this assault. Martin Saar Arias joins us now to discuss this further. Martin, there has been 13 officers killed in a drone strike that downed a police officer. Can you tell us a bit more about this situation that's happened in Colombia?
Unfortunately, in Colombia, the terror group called FARC has not been absolutely destroyed during the years. The background of this issue, these so-called revolutionary forces are trying to impact governmental decisions by causing chaos, killing people, and carrying out terror attacks. Even right now, where Colombia is being leaded by a left-wing government, this FARC extremist group is so extremist that they don't support any government that does not do whatever they want in their agenda. But specifically now, the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, has declared this group a terror group, and they are going to work together with the Ministry of Defense to retaliate this horrible terror attack where 13 police officers were killed. And this is a new, unfortunately, in Colombia, this trend is coming back to the 80s, where Colombia had an internal war against cartels and against this type of terror groups, which is very concerning. And this is coming back in 2025.
Yeah, of course. Martin, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that. Colombia, some people obviously know it as the home of Pablo Escobar, has a very famous history of narcotic trafficking. What is the landscape like that for now? You said it's coming back in. Could you tell us a bit more about what's going on there?
Absolutely. Colombia, because of its strategic location, is the perfect place to deal with drug and narco dealing. We've seen a lot of cooperation with several narco cartels around Latin America. Also, Mexican cartels are involved. And Colombia is the perfect place to send cocaine to the rest of the world. So also because there has been a shift of government, right now we see that the current government of Colombia has been a little bit not so awakened in being strong against this type of terror groups. And right now they're waking up and they're trying to do their best to stop these groups to spread out. But right now we see that the situation, and not only in Colombia, but also in Ecuador or in other South American countries, is very critical because the narcos taking over states. They are infiltrating the government, they're infiltrating, they have cells, even in the police. I'm talking generally, not only in Colombia, but in general in South America. This is a huge problem. And yeah, in the specific case of Colombia, is still the best place to do drug dealing. And right now, the President Petro is going to have a huge responsibility to retaliate and maybe even to have international cooperation. He has already said that he's open to have cooperation with the FBI within the case of the political candidate that was killed the last month. So hopefully this will be taken in consideration by the current government.
Martin Sá Arias, thank you very much for joining us. Pleasure to have you on the programme, as always. We now move over to South Asia once again, where Sri Lanka's jailed former president, Ranil Wickremesinghe, was hospitalised the day after his arrest on allegations that he misused public funds while in office. The hospital director said that he was taken to the emergency care unit at Colombo National Hospital with complications from dehydration, diabetes and high blood pressure. Six-time Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, who lost the presidency last year, had been investigated over using $55,000 in state funds for a stopover in Britain while returning home from a G77 summit in Havana and the UN General Assembly in New York in September of 2023. The three former presidents of Sri Lanka, Chandrika Kumrantunga, Mahinga Rajapaksa and Mathringa Sirisenga, have expressed solidarity with the jailed ex-leader and condemned his incarceration as an assault on democracy. His own United National Party has issued the statement that Wickremesinghe is being prosecuted out of fear of political comeback. We're now joined by Asuma Katauka. She's an anchor and correspondent, and she joins us live from the newsroom. Asuma, what more context can you bring to this?
Yes, as you have also mentioned that the ex-president Wickremesinghe of Sri Lanka has been detained. He's under arrest currently. because of the accusation of allegedly misusing state funds while on his visit on his way back from Havana after attending G77 meeting to visit his wife's professor. His wife is a professor in a British university, and he was attending her event in UK, where he is said to have misused or used the state funds for his duration of his visit, and also covering the cost of all the guards that he needed during his visit. However, he has maintained the fact that his wife's expenses were all covered by herself and not by him. However, this is still an allegation, and he was arrested on Friday, and then on Saturday he was taken to Colombo's hospital because of dehydration, diabetes, and high blood pressure. His doctors have confirmed that. However, his office has not commented on this yet. As you've also mentioned that his allies from his cabinet or his party, and also the 3 ex-presidents of Sri Lanka, all have condemned this jailing of Ramasinghe, and they have said that this is politically motivated. Also, the fact that he comes from a highly well-known, politically involved family. He was the youngest cabinet member of Sri Lanka. He became a cabinet member at the age of only 29, and ever since then he has stayed in government of Sri Lanka. He has also he became a cabinet member while his uncle was the president of Sri Lanka.
Thank you very much, Asuma, for providing some context there. We now move on once again and over to North America, where 2 people have died in central Mexico after being swept away by floodwaters during heavy rains in the city of Querétaro. Authorities confirmed the victims were found late on Friday as relentless downpours battered the region. Federal officials have activated a military emergency response plan after widespread damage to homes and infrastructure. In Mexico City, torrential rains forced a temporary shutdown of Benito Juárez International Airport, one of Latin America's busiest. Officials here say this year has been Mexico's wettest in decades, with scientists warning that climate change is fueling increasingly destructive storms and severe flooding across the country. We're once again joined by Desmond Mejek-Kodumi, and he's an environmentalist, and he joins us from Lagos in Nigeria. Desmond, we talk once again about another environmental catastrophe that's happened, this time in Mexico. Your thoughts on on this disaster, and how does global warming cause a disaster like this one that we are currently seeing visuals of on our screen?
Yes, those visuals are absolutely terrible. Our hearts go out to the people who lost their lives. And it is yet again, another reaction of nature giving back to humanity what we've been giving to her. We as humans generally have been committing acts of violent terrorism against nature. It's as basic as that, because nature has perfect working systems. Every aspect of her, from the atmosphere to the amount of heat that comes in, every aspect of her works in perfect harmony. But we have been disrupting this harmonious operation in many areas, but particularly in this case, by pumping far too much heat-trapping gases into the atmosphere. Yeah, CO2 basically, methane as well, but mainly CO2, massive amounts of it. So we're upsetting the balance. And as a result, the obvious reaction is going to be heavier rain, because more heat, more evaporation. More evaporation, hey, guess what? Heavier rain. And it's going to be coming on stronger and stronger. It's not as if we haven't had storms and pretty heavy storms during the course of the last few centuries, but the frequency of the very heavy storms and the severity of these storms are increasing almost exponentially. And we were told this would happen by the meteorological scientists, and it's exactly happening as they said it would. They also said, if we don't stop the pollution, if we don't start treating nature far more caringly, it's going to get a lot worse and a lot more widespread. So it's yet another warning from Mother Nature, who is saying, okay, you children, behave yourselves, change your attitudes, stop your greed-driven destruction of my wonderful resources. And that, greed and the selfishness, it's manifesting in so many other areas as well, just against ourselves. There's always a reason, a good excuse to be committing terrorist acts or to be committing acts of war, to wiping out children or whatever. No, nature is saying enough is enough. Change your ways.
Desmond, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much for your insight. Well, that is all that we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more updates from around the world. Thank you for joining us.